This is part 2 of my job journey. If you need context, I would recommend watching part 1. So at this point, I have graduated, I'm living at home, and I finally got a job at a 9-to-5, my first big girl job in a science lab. I worked in scientific operations as a program manager for a institute that was studying mechanistic cognitive neuroscience. This is me at work on a day where I had to go up to the lab. We had BSL labs at different levels, so sometimes I had to wear PPE. I got hired for this job. I was over the moon. I was mostly hired as a wellness coordinator, so I was doing employee wellness programming. I was running trainings, hiring speakers to come in and give book talks for people about how to manage stress, the science of sleep, things like that. And then I was also managing some other programs in occupational health, ergonomics. Yeah, that was all I was doing when I had just started. And the job was so fucking cool. I worked with some of the smartest people I've ever met. I had no business running all these programs to support people that had multiple PhDs. I felt like an imposter every day, but I also learned really cool stuff every day at work, and I met very cool people. The only thing that started to wear away at me in the beginning was that the job was over an hour away from my house, and then coming home, it was like an hour and a half long commute, and it was in person every day. I could not do this while I'm talking fully, but I'll try to touch it up now. So then COVID happens. I was privileged enough to not be an essential worker and was sent to work from home. And at this time, my parents were asking for some help, just kind of refreshing pieces in our house. But my parents are both super frugal and they always raised me thrifting and antiquing. So I started to look online for things. And then once we had figured out everything that was going to go in their house, we had some left over and I started to sell it on Facebook. And at this point, people were asking me if I had a business. And I was like, no, this is just some random extra stuff that we have. I'm going to bronze a little bit more. So around this same time, I am looking for a roommate just because this had coincided with the time in my life where I was like, this is not the best time, but I really need to move out. I want to be in my own space. I am in the town that I've always lived in, living in the house that I've always lived in, and I'm home all the time now, and I just kind of need some room to breathe. So I'm searching for a roommate. I am talking to this girl, Lauren, and I'm like, I love estate sales, I love auctions, whatever. We sound really alike, and we signed up to be roommates. Before we even moved in together, she's like, well, if you like all this stuff so much and people are asking you if you're selling it, why don't we just start a business? So her and I started a business together. We never met. We weren't living together yet. And we just started doing little vintage drops out of our house. This makes me so emo. So that's Lori. This is us going to pick some stuff up. I don't know why this photo is blurry, but basically Lauren's amazing at photography. I was okay at marketing, so we just hung up this backdrop in our kitchen where we had rats and roaches, and we made it look like a backdrop and then started to do little drops on Instagram of literally 5 things at a time, and when it would sell out, we thought we were kings of the world. We were making about $4 an hour. But like, how cute. You never would have known where that was taken. This is when we finally bought a ring light. We got a little more advanced with the photography. Our vintage Instagram was growing a little bit, and we were on Popville. We had our sales like in our front yard of our apartment, super unsafe. I was on TikTok, Lauren was on it, got me hooked on it, and then was like, we should make a TikTok for our business, and you, Heather, have to speak on it because I don't want to be on camera. And obviously all of our views were just skyrocketing, killing, going viral, 0 views. Like whatever, we weren't really spending that much time on TikTok. We were making all these cute little edits for each little drops that we would do, and we would spend all of our lunch breaks and work hours and after hours online doing this. Pop-ups were growing, which was really exciting, and we could use our friends' houses or did like little barters with people to get bigger spaces. Meanwhile, back at my 9-to-5, I was rewarded for a job well done with more responsibility. We were setting up a CLIA lab to COVID test employees, so I had to write a ton of SOPs, hire, interview, train, fire, etc. Then when people couldn't make it to work or things happened, I was the manager, so I had to go into work in their place. So I started going into work sometimes at like 5 a.m. on the weekends, and I was just going to the office a lot more than I ever had been because I was only working in office like 6 months before we were sent home. It was also around the time that I started to have a conversation with myself of being like, okay, why am I busting my ass around the clock to do something that's effectively paying me $0 and I'm not working as hard as this, which I thought was what I really wanted to do. I was definitely not about to quit because I was lucky to be employed at all. It was a great workplace and I had just gotten this sexy new managerial position. Now the year of our Lord 2022, I'm at New Year's talking to some friends and I'm like, I think I need another job. I don't feel the same fire for this. COVID is going to end. I need something else to launch me a different direction in life. And talking about how I love architecture, interior design, I'm like, should I go back to school? Should I try to be an interior decorator and shadow somebody? One of my friends from high school says, oh, my mom owns a home staging company. I don't know shit about shit, but I'm never not networking. So I called Taylor up and I said, her name is not Taylor, but what if I just called Taylor up? I called her up and I said, can I work for you? I interviewed. I said, I'm a hard worker. I don't know anything, but I will learn. Let me work for you. I will pay you. And she said, okay. She paid me, which was awesome. So I basically my schedule at this point looked like I had my 9 to 5, and the days that I was remote at home, I would cut out of work immediately at 5 or sometimes 4 if I could flex my schedule and work earlier, go to the warehouse and prep everything for the home staging. So this is basically just staging homes to get them to look all sexy for people to buy them. So you work with real estate agents. So I'd go around this warehouse, pick out everything for the design scheme of what we were going for, bag it during the evenings. On the nights and lunch breaks, whatever, that I wasn't doing that, I was doing my vintage business. And then on the weekends, I would wake up early and go with the movers and my boss to the houses and stage everything. So make the shelves look pretty, hang up art, put in rugs, couches, fully like somebody lives there. This time period and the months that transpired after this were what Lauren calls a very scary time, because I was just running around like a mad woman. I was doing these 3 jobs and then also taking on any odd jobs I could, babysitting people's kids, dog walking, house sitting, plant watering. I was in my Dave Ramsey like grind set hustle era. And I started having to go in office more, and that was stressing me out because it was interrupting all my side hustles, which I cared about way more. Whenever people ask me how I had multiple jobs, the answer is that I was sick all the time, I never saw my friends, and I was always insanely stressed. On top of the rest of the circus, my roommate Lauren was like, respectfully, you come in my room every day and give these rants about clothing companies or whatever, and you just need to channel this somewhere else. She was like, people really respond well to videos of you on the HQ TikTok that we had made before that we didn't use for like a year. Just let's rename it to something silly, whatever, and just put your little videos on there and stop bothering me. And I was like, okay. We brainstormed a nickname. We came up with Pigmami. Pigmami was born. Perfect storm comes together. I'm making all these videos about my wish list. I finally get that gigantic raise that I was going for, and I have all these other odd jobs, and I was like, I'm gonna buy myself my first ever new designer thing. That's when the Hermes thing started, slippery slope. At this point, I'm fully back in office, so TikTok and posting my outfits is like what I'm looking forward to every day, because it's very difficult to maintain all these other side hustles when I'm working in person, and I'm also having those feelings of, oh, my job has been proven that it could be done remote, so why can't I work more remote? We were like back, not hybrid. While I was at work, I was mostly thinking about TikToks I could make or tip videos I wanted to make, things I wanted to learn about that I wanted to research more, and then vintage stuff and doing our pop-ups on weekends. I also had a lot of generous PTO and sick time, so I was taking days off to do my other jobs. I was doing my vintage business, home staging, my 9 to 5, odd jobs, and then I also started getting money from brand deals, and I also had companies reaching out to me to do ad work for them. Like I made advertisement videos for Foxtrot, but they weren't on my channels. I guess you call that UGC, I don't know, but I was getting paid to do that too. The original game plan was for me to get another corporate job, and then I applied for so many jobs, I had a bunch of interviews, and none of it really seemed like a good fit or something I would really pour myself into. And one day, and we had pro this in Socratic Seminar, this like 8 ways to Sunday, and one day I just went into work and I quit my job, and I sobbed in my boss's office, and we hugged and had this whole emotional conversation, and then I went outside and threw up in a bush, told everybody else on my team, and this was me driving home that day. Still makes me cry to this day. I worked with the most amazing people, and I will never forget anybody that I work with at that job. They wrote me a card that said Pigmami and put these very funny and pointed inside joke things in this card on the day that I left. But I'll never forget when my coworker Laura was like, yeah, I knew you were gonna quit because your face when you talk about cashmere is not the same as when you talk about construction. And when she said that, it was just funny, haha. But I do think that it's something that I've thought about now a lot since. More on that in a second, but I basically took 2 months off of having a regular job, and then I was like, I need another job because there's never too many jobs. So I got a job as a personal chef and a personal assistant, basically cook for them multiple times a week. These are all the same photos because I don't like to take a lot of photos in their house, so sorry you've seen this before. But yeah, basically do anything that they ask me to do. And I'm leaving that job for New York, which is why I feel comfortable talking about it now. I'm in the Jackie Ina school of like, don't talk about things until they're finished. It's just, that's the boundary that I like for my privacy. So that's the journey. The New York plan is under wraps, as I said, but the last thing I'll say related to what my coworker said is that I used to think I had some shame around doing all these different jobs, or that I felt like I needed to justify myself because people had made comments being like, oh, I didn't know you were smart and that you worked in science. I thought you just worked in fashion. 1, I don't know what you mean by that. 2, I realized that if I want to help people and provide value to them, it doesn't always need to look like the sexy optics that I had at my office job, because that looked good on paper, but I didn't ever feel like I was helping anyone at the end of the day. And now I just love connecting with vintage customers and people in my DMs, feeling like I'm helping people feel more confident with content, and then personal chef stuff. I love connecting with my clients and being of service to them. So I just kind of learned that about myself, and this is where I'm at now. And there's no right or wrong way to approach a career. It doesn't have to be linear, and you don't have to know what you're doing, because I'm still 26 and I don't know what I'm doing. So I hope that helps someone, and that's all my jobs.